then share my screen. Wait, I don't want to square my screen that way. Stop share. I want to do it this way. Now I'm going to share my screen. Did I already say that? Am I repeating myself? Okay, here we go. Screen share. Okay, good. Okay, so you see barely, but you see these little lines? Yes. I'll make it bigger. Okay. You see the census, how they did it in 1790? And again, my point here is just to point out how arbitrary race is and how dangerous it is. You had free white males, free white females, and all other persons. Okay. That would be indentured servants. That would be slaves. It would be non-citizens. You see who's missing from that list?
Me?
Who?
Me.
You. Yeah, just about everybody here. Me in what sense?
Oh, well, I don't know that because I'm Mexican American. I'm a mix of all of this.
Okay, so mixed groups, true. Also, you see Native Americans there? Weren't even counted in the census. They were an inconvenience. 1840, now you had three groups. You had free colored males and females, and you had slaves. You still didn't have Native Americans. You still didn't have Latinx. Now, don't forget, by then we had taken over several territories where there were other peoples living there, but we didn't count them as citizens. 1860, just before the Civil War, we got a little scientific. You had whites, then you had black people, then you had mulattoes. What are mulattoes?
Are they mixed?
Yeah. African American and something else. Then you had black slaves, and even lower down were mulatto slaves. Lower than slaves were slaves of mixed backgrounds, which is ironic because who usually was their parent, their father?
It was the slave master.
Yeah, the slave master. So their children were considered lower than slaves that were not their children. And then finally, they put in Native Americans and did First Peoples. 1890, oh, we got really deep. Remember how I was saying race was very arbitrary? So you had black people, you had mulattoes, which were mixed, quadroons, which were 1/4 black, and octoroons, which were 1/8 black. Okay. That was important because in 1896 with Plessy versus Ferguson, what was that case again?
Separate and equal.
Good. Notice how she said and rather than other. He was 1/8 black. Okay. Then you had interesting Chinese, Japanese. You didn't have Mexican Americans, even though when we stole the Southwest from Mexico, we stole 300,000 people as well. 1900, we got, because of Plessy v. Ferguson, with the one drop rule, we went back to just blacks, Indian. So you see a subtlety there, how before Plessy v. Ferguson, they were being very, quote, scientific about how they measured people. But then with Plessy v. Ferguson, if anybody had any black blood at all, they were considered black. So they didn't need all those other categories. 1940, reality is beginning to dawn We have Chinese, Japanese, Filipino, Korean, and Hindu. What don't we have there?
Latinx.
Next, we don't have. What else? African origin. We don't have Vietnamese. We don't have Laotian. 1880. You see, now we have Indian, but you also have Aleut and Eskimo. Now, Aleut, the Aleutians are an island off of a series of islands off of Alaska, and they're considered a separate people. Eskimo, like Native Americans, are several different nations, not just one. And it's a term they don't like, but it's a census term. Then you have a much, much broader expansion, particularly of Asians. And then you see, now we do recognize that we have Latinx, some Latinx people, but many are others, other Hispanic, Spanish, and Hispanic. Those are out of order. I flipped those. So that's 2000, 1960 and 1980. Now, 2000 and 2020, 2000, 2010 are pretty much the same, where you have a broader group of Asians, Native Hawaiians, and then the same thing with Latin Americans for both those years. And 2020 was the same as this year. So you see a lot of arbitrariness going into what a race is. But, and this is the point, what's the difference between race and ethnicity? Hello? This is your turn to talk and my turn to drink coffee.
Professor, would race be like your skin color, and ethnicity be like the country of origin that you're from?
We're getting a little closer. Race is sometimes identified by skin color, but we look at families of, quote, a race identified by skin color, and you see a great, great deal of difference. And ethnicity is the culture, you're right. Not so much the country of origin, but the culture. But skin color doesn't really work for race, but it's used as a definition. And here's the deal. We're going to look a lot at ethnicity, starting with the Constance King article about her ethnicity is really, really important. But also how people get raised. Race scientifically is nothing. You cannot do any scientific way to measure race, not by skin color, not by DNA, not by hair texture. But it's also everything, because it's used so pervasively in our society. I mean, we are so race conscious and race avoidance. It provides access to some people. And if you don't doubt that, look at who gets the COVID shots now and who doesn't. Healthcare is a big one. It creates exclusion. Who gets educated, who doesn't. It's a privilege. Look at courts, look at prosecutions. Who could get by? If my white sons are caught speeding, what's going to happen to them? Nothing. If my black son gets caught, he gets in trouble. All aspects of life, from infant mortality, death rate, quote, race affects people, even though it's not a real thing. And as demonstrated in the BLM movement, race is life and death. So you can't really give a precise definition of race, but it's there, and we have to understand how it's there. Any questions on this? Because I want to switch to Kingston. A couple of you have read Kingston. Who was that before this? Okay, Marissa, what did you read by her?
I read one of her books in my American Studies class and while I was in high school. I don't remember the name though.
Was it Woman Warrior? Or
I think so.
might have been. That's her most famous book. You see her there? Do people see her on the screen?
Yes.
Okay. Has anybody else read anything by her? Okay. What the thing you read for today is taken from her book, Woman Warrior. And I really loved a lot of your comments. So I actually want to, and if I don't call on you, don't feel bad. But I just want to get some dialogue going here. Is Radiolus Perez here?
Yes, I am.
Okay. How do you pronounce your name again? I really do apologize for that.
Raidiris.
What is it?
Raidiris.
Right. Okay. You said something on the first question.
What is it again? I'm sorry.
What?
What is it again? I'm sorry.
On the first question, I was looking at one of your answers. And again, I'm calling on some people, not, I mean, all of you did well, about not trusting the children. What did you mean by that?
Wait, give me just 1 second.
It's not a good answer. When you went, that's an answer, but it's not a great answer.
Whenever any of the arrows on the side of the
Sorry.
Um,
I mean,
go ahead.
I think that's the questions that you posted.
Yeah. And you wrote in there about the parents couldn't trust their children. What did you mean by that? Or anybody? It was a really good point. And everybody should be ready to talk about what they wrote. Eddie, why couldn't the parents trust the children? And this cut across all the questions. Anybody? You did
Professor,
what?
is that because like they saw them almost as like half ghosts, where like they're not fully integrated with like Chinese culture, but the same token they're not fully integrated with American culture either at that point?
And as you see on that quote I have there, is torn between both worlds without really being a part of either. There's a wonderful book by a Puerto Rican, Perry Thomas, he was born here in the 1930s. And then these other Puerto Rican immigrants came in not immigrants because they're part of the United States, came in the 40s. And they were very different from them. So he is very confused about who was Puerto Rican. And he has a line in there that he's like an immigrant on a boat trapped between two worlds. So I think that is a part of it. But the other part of it was very practical. Why couldn't they trust their children? What secrets did they have?
Oh, is it like the secrets that they like their immigration status and like they were scared that they would share the true story and they would get sent back to China?
Yeah, there was a whole immigration issue. I couldn't hear you guys because my headphones were on but not plugged in. Okay, can you hear me better now?
You're the same.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, so everybody heard that point. They were holding secrets. Marissa, you also talked about examples of how ghosts talk.
Yeah. The Kingston wrote like what made them kind of ghosts, and like they were considered like too loud and like too noisy, and they like talked with their mouth full and stuff like that. So they didn't have the proper like social mannerisms and like just manners that like were embedded in the Chinese culture that their parents had, and that's what made them like ghosts, like white people.
Yeah. Somebody should mute themselves. There's a TV or something in the background. Yeah, that was a good point. And Giselle, you got to really the key of it. The mother said, they tainted my house with sick medicine and you must remove the curse. What did that mean?
Yeah, so I didn't really understand, like, I don't know if there was like a message behind that part, but how the druggist came and that medicine was not for them. So that like now, because so the mom saw it as that being like a curse, and that in order for it to like get removed, the children had to go and ask for candy.
Yeah, and we'll talk about that later. Yeah, but so that's how the mother interpreted that. Okay, Justine, on the second question, you wrote about, oh, I wish I could read my handwriting. Justine, did I say that already? Oh, yeah. On the second question, you wrote the trust is an absent commodity. I thought that was a great point. What did you mean by that? This whole notion of who you could trust and who you can't trust. Go ahead.
So when I was talking about that, it was kind of what we mentioned before about like the fear of the children getting a chance to talk to the ghost and them revealing their secrets and they and getting deported, and like they even mentioned not even having a home. Like back in China, so to get deported, like they wouldn't be sending them to home, like they would just be sending them back there just to get rid of them. But the trust thing is that the fear if they speak one word to them, everyone might be gone.
Yeah. And so they couldn't trust. And that was something. Karina, oh no, that I'll get to you in a minute, Karina. Stephen, why did she hate the secrecy? Stephen, unmute yourself.
Yes, Mr. Professor.
Yeah, why did Kingston hate the secrecy?
Okay, Professor, there was a problem in my homework.
Oh, your homework was fine.
No, because when I'm trying to send, they receive half my questions, so I have to do too faster because I don't have the time. So that's
Although,
why.
didn't you answer these?
Yeah, I answered that, but too faster because I don't have the times.
No, you answered them really well. Sorry, but you did a good job. And on the second one, you talked about Kingston hating the secrecy.
Uh-huh.
And anybody then, why did she hate the secrecy?
Was it because she felt like they were not able to speak because of that?
Yeah. Hello, Karen, that she was unable to speak. She hated the rules. And a lot of you wrote about that. What was I going to say? Several of you rose the issue here or in question for Marissa and others about why they couldn't call the police. Not just distrusting police, but why couldn't they call the police?
They had a fear of deportation.
Yeah. Now, I don't know if I mentioned this. I used to do housing organizing in the city, and I worked a lot with the Haitian community, and they could absolutely not call the police when the landlord didn't supply services because so many people were undocumented. Same thing in a lot of factories. People were treated really poorly, but couldn't dare call the cops to come in because of the undocumented status. And one of the things Biden tried to do last week, but got blocked by the courts, was to stop deportations. But this fear that they talked about is real. Also, domestic violence is very underreported. Karina wrote about this in a different question. Do you want to say something, Karina, about the hidden part of the community?
Well, I guess I can say that many women don't feel comfortable like calling authorities when their husbands are like abusing them because they don't want to cause like any attention, I guess. Like,
Yeah, for the reason women stopped talking about. And again, I was really, really impressed with your responses, and I'm going through just some of them. Jalen, on question 3, you had lying is survival. What do you mean by that? And Des, you're next.
So what?
You talked about how people had to lie to survive.
Yeah, because like I guess like you said before, like her fear of being deported and stuff. They would have her treated and stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. Des, you there? Okay,
Yes.
good. Just checking. Never mind. No, I'm kidding. Des, you did something I thought very sensitive in your piece on question 3. I mean, Marissa, are you eating the goat before we served it to the rest of us? What are you eating?
No, I made a granola bar.
Okay, Des, one of the things I liked about your piece was that you had some sympathy for the mother's motivations. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, I understood where the mother was coming from.
Could you say a little more?
Wait, can you repeat the third question?
Does somebody have it in front of them? I don't have the questions in front of me, actually.
Yeah. So the question was, how does her community view outsiders?
Yeah. And Kingston was very critical of that, but then Des sort of turned it around. Des?
This is where I explain ghost.
You explained the mother's reasonings.
For what happened in the beginning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Just because like I know what that experience is like. And I know that my mom too would be guilty of this, and my dad. So I know that it could be very easy to dismiss my parents' I guess, how they understand how things happen and how they view it.
Yeah.
But I respected it even as a child.
Yeah,
So I knew that.
No, I just thought that was very generous what you wrote in that question. And
right. Like I get it. So
yeah, that was
I'm
cool.
being very vague right now, but
No, I don't want you to go deeper. But and that's why I'm asking you about that question rather than some of the others. But I thought it's easy to see things from our perspective. One of the things I hope we do in this class is try to see things from other perspectives as well. Alex, you there? Yeah, you're there.
Yeah.
What did you mean in your first question that you said the Chinese people think everything is the same?
Oh, when they come from China, they probably think everything's the same. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's not.
That they don't differentiate between various groups, the subtleties. Karen, where's your note? Where are my notes on you? Oh, yeah. Karen, on the fourth question, you talked about conspiracies in a way that I thought was just brilliantly presented.
Yes. So in various communities, there are families would tend to think about out of the ordinary. So they would probably overthink because of their paranoia, because of their fear on getting deported. So they would think like, oh, if you go to the San Francisco Boats or whatever, this is what's going to happen because I heard it from so-and-so. So then they create like their own little stories and theories within like themselves. And then they try to like tell it to each other like as best as they can, even though it might not be what they know.
Yeah, so they kind of circle together to hold things up. Okay, somebody tell me about the curse. The curse. What exactly was the curse about again? What set this whole thing? What set her mother off? Oh, come on.
That there were wrongfully prescribed like medication was like delivered to their house, and like they were perfectly healthy. So she thought that would be a curse to them, that they would fall unwell or sick.
Why was that such a big deal to them all? Anybody, why was it such a big deal?
little confused about it because I think this kind of helped me. I might have took it in the wrong direction, but I felt like that helped me understand the generational gap because I feel like, well, the kids didn't understand pretty much. They were just listening to what was being told to them. And I'm pretty sure her doing these type of things to prevent this curse or whatever was passed down to her. So I felt like that helped me understand like the kind of the generational aspect.
Okay, let's turn it around a little bit. To us, we might insensitively call that a superstition. But are there practices in your families that are somewhat similar?
Yes.
Maybe, who said yes?
Karen, Diablo.
Okay, Diablo, yeah. Diabla or Diablo?
Diabla.
Okay, go ahead.
Like for example, for me, we believe in brujeria, so that's technically like almost similar to what Kingston's mother believed like the curse was, because for us it's like if we like feel something or if we have a really terrible like frightening dream, which actually happened last night, we would go full on sage mode, full on prayer mode, because we think, and we actually have unfortunately family members that actually do brujeria. So we try to like rebuke all of that, repel all of that, and it's to us it's something very real.
Okay, and you heard the term, to us it's very real. Okay, others? Just as a footnote, I'm teaching my granddaughter to call my wife Bruja.
Don't do that.
I already started, it's underway, it's in motion.
I'm gonna fight you.
A lot of people feel that way. Other beliefs that others, outsiders might call superstition.
For me, if like, let's just say there's two, like you and I are walking somewhere and there's a pool, we can't split it. That's something I really do believe in. Like, you can't split the pool. I guess that's like superstition kind of.
Okay. I think we have them in almost every culture. And often the parents, the first generation has them more than the next generation. How many people knock on wood 3 times for good luck? Okay. Abigail, do you know why you do that? Where that came from? You're actually speaking Jewish when you do that.
I did not know that.
Yeah, it's a way to ward off the Kanahara, which is the bad spirits or the Divics. But it used to be you would spit 3 times. Then as we got more civilized, we went tui, tui, tui. Then it shifted to knocking on the desk 3 times. So it's interesting to see how these evolve. I also think my wife almost killed my older son because she bought the crib before he was born. And he did almost die. He was in critical condition for a week. Can't do that. I was livid when I came home and saw the crib. Why was I upset? And like Karen, I was kind of right because it almost came true. Because you don't expect good things to happen, because if you do, you tempt the fates. So that's why we went for a planned C-section on the younger kid. Okay, and just one other thing about the homework. Does anybody else want to say anything about the homework before I sum it up and move on to Kingston? Okay, on the 4th question, it was interesting how some people experienced these things in their communities and others did not. And that's where race becomes a privilege again. It's a privilege not to have to worry with these fears. And it's not a critique of people that have never experienced it. I'm so glad you haven't. I wish we lived in a country where nobody experienced it. But the fact that it was not interesting, but it was very sad to see that some people face this on a daily basis, and that race is so arbitrary that others people don't face it at all. Okay, so anything else on that before we get right into the article? Any general comments on the article itself? It's a short one, and I really love her writing. Okay. I can't see you all at once, but I would really like some more chatter. Maybe what I'll do next time is assign you things to talk about. Okay, Kingston. You still see her on the screen?
Yeah.
Okay. She's torn between two worlds without being part of others. Does that ring a bell with anybody?
Yeah.
Who is speaking?
Karen.
Okay, go ahead.
Maybe not personally, but I have friends who are basically they don't have, they're not like residents, they don't have papers, so they struggle, and they're living within this country, and they have family like in, for example, Mexico, and they're torn between who am I, or like where am I actually a part of, because they want to be here for education, but yet other family and their loved ones are in Mexico, and then it's just this like turmoil within.
Anybody else? Thank you. When we were in China, we were traveling with friends of ours. Somebody was our age, and then her daughter, who came here when she was 12, and I think was about 30 at the time we were there with them. And she and her mother kept getting into huge fights. You're not really Chinese, you're too American. And then the daughter would cry, I'm really Chinese. But it was just really, different attitudes. Her daughter was likely to talk back to the elders. The mother thought that was the worst thing that could possibly happen. And this is one of the things that Kingston is going through. Somebody in their homework referred to her as the young Kingston. I love that term because she was writing that part of the book from the perspective of a child. Okay. We're supposed to, I can't see what I have to do here. Okay, her background. She was a child. She's from Stockton, California. She was the eldest, is the eldest of 6 children, all born in the United States. Chinese was her first language. Now, this we'll see a lot of with various groups that we're working at. The father came to New York in 1924. He was married to her mom, but her mom didn't come till later. Her father was trained as a poet and a calligrapher. Is that how you pronounce it? Jason, how do you pronounce it? Calligrapher. Okay. So what do you think? What work do you think he got in the United States? It's a cliche and it's true. Forced to work in a laundry. And that's a stereotype that we have of Chinese, or some people have. But when we look at it, it was also there was something called the anti-Q laws. Does anybody know what a Q is? Q-U-E. It's the Chinese ponytail. And Chinese in many states, including, let me think of a random state, New Jersey, were not allowed to hold certain jobs. Okay. And they were forced to work in restaurants and in laundries. Her mom didn't come until 1939. Now, as you remember, we had this ban on Chinese immigration. Her mom was undocumented. She went to Berkeley on a full scholarship, and she went there in the 1960s. She graduated in 1962, which again, what was happening in the 60s? Political activism, political awareness. So she came from that period. And then she met her husband, Earl. It's not a spelling mistake. This is very interesting, gets back to what Karen was saying. My subconscious is Chinese, isn't that weird? At night in my dreams, I speak to Errol, her husband, in Chinese. He doesn't speak Chinese. Does anybody else who is blessed to be multilingual go back and forth like that in their dreams? I got a feeling either you died or my mic is not working. Is anybody out there?
Yeah.
Okay, what about this?
Personally, I grew up speaking Spanish, like, but that was my first language because of my parents.
I'm sorry, who's speaking?
Abigail.
Okay, go ahead.
I grew up speaking Spanish. My mom, that was the first language she taught me. And then I slowly learned English. And then English became my stronger language. So I now speak English more so than I speak Spanish. But every time that I'm speaking to my mother, I like go back and forth. And we call it Spanglish because I get stuck in between and I can't choose one.
Yeah, I think that's a great example. I have a very good friend. Her mom is from Colombia and her dad is Palestinian. She's about 45 now, so she's PhD, brilliant. So her mom is from Colombia. She converted to become a Muslim like her dad. So she has dreams that her father, who didn't speak Spanish, is yelling at her in Spanish that her Arabic is not good enough. You know, and her dreams of her father, who didn't speak Spanish, are in Spanish. And I think, we'll look at language a little bit. Kingston also said, I learned to make my mind large as the universe is large. So that there is room for contradictions. Anybody want to take a shot at that? Her definition is contradictions. Is she Chinese? Is she an American? Where is she? And they don't always fit together. Does anybody know the practice about foot binding in China?
Professor, is that where they like would squish like young children's feet to like make them smaller, I guess?
Female children only. Yeah. And they did that. Why, do you think?
So that they would all be the same foot size?
No. They did that so they couldn't move very fast. It is painful to walk. And it was another way to control the women. And that's what you mean. Perhaps women were once so dangerous they had to have their feet bound. She's really getting to a big point there. When you raise girls, you are raising children for strangers. What did that mean? From her culture, what did that mean? And we're going to read more about this when we read about the Chinese immigration patterns. In her traditional culture, Chinese culture, when people marry out, they go to the husband's family, and they're really not supposed to have anything to do with the mother's family after that. Okay. So, these are some of her books and awards. Obama gave her the National Council of the Arts Award in 2014. Now, to the article itself, Reparation Candy is an amazing book, as I said. Why the title? Why was it called Reparation Candy? What did she bring home from the drugstore?
She brought back candy.
Yeah, and why?
Because initially the drugstore tried to give them a prescription that wasn't theirs, so they felt offended by that.
Yeah, and so to remove the curse. Now, in the very first, I think it's the first line. Yeah, the very first line of the story, we were working at laundry. We were working at the laundry, I should have said. Again, it's a stereotype and it's true. It's not an accident. If you picked a Chinese family in the 40s and 50s, it's very likely they would be working at a laundry or at a restaurant. Okay. The delivery ghost was, of course, the kid that delivered. Now, what does the term ghost mean in general? Who did it refer to?
White people?
Yeah. And why were they called ghost?
I guess because your skin is pale.
On the surface, their skin is pale, but it gets deeper. They were seen to have no soul, no spirit. They were nothing. Okay. Her mother was angry. I think we talked about that. Tell what her mother did for the eclipse of the moon.
They banged the pots, something like that.
Yeah, who's speaking?
Giselle.
Yeah, why did they bang the pots on the roof?
So I don't know. It had to do something with the moon, I think. So it wasn't.
Yeah, to scare the eclipse away, right? Does that sound like a superstition to people? It worked, right? The eclipse ended. So maybe it was effective. But the point is, she was very embarrassed by that because it was a different culture. Now, she talks about the siblings would not look at each other in the very beginning of the story. And that was also because they knew they were embarrassed by what their mother was doing. Now, Giselle wrote in her piece that she was the oldest. How many, just do a thumbs up here. How many are you the oldest children in your family? Okay, is that a good thing or a bad thing?
Bit of both.
Okay. In her family, it was pretty bad in the sense, not bad, but she had to be the interpreter. She had to be the one, you, the oldest, you got to go talk to the druggist. She tells her that. My theory is the oldest child should be thrown away at 10 because we make too many mistakes as parents, but it's just a theory I'm working on. But again, there's certain, particularly with immigrant families, there is really a issue where the oldest has the burden, extra burden. And so the daughter had to go to the drugstore and get reparation candy. And she said, the mom said, if you don't do this, you are responsible for the plague on our house. So not only is having to do things, but it's a level of responsibility. And what did the druggist think when she showed up asking for candy?
He said, "What? Speak up. Speak English."
Yeah, and she tried to say all in one word, right? And eventually he gave her candy and he thought it was the tradition in China, right? And every year he would give the family candy. Okay, 1906, what is that a picture of? You see the photograph? What is that a photograph of?
Is it the San Francisco fire that happened? Like
Earthquake that led to fires. Why was that so important to the Chinese community? Because all records of immigration were destroyed. So the people that were undocumented said, no, just, oh, you lost the records. Well, you're going to have to trust me. I'm documented. Okay. And that became a very significant thing to the community. Her mom at one point at school said, why would you believe the ghost teachers? Look at their jaws. What was her IQ when she first came here? Or when she first, zero. Yeah. For those of you who had me in other classes, I hate standardized tests because they're so culturally biased. Here's somebody that eventually got a full scholarship to Berkeley, but her IQ was rated as 0. How could she make her teacher disappear? You could just turn off your computer. How could she make her teacher disappear? She squinted and made her really, really tiny. Her parents, what were their occupations, addresses, and names? What were they supposed to do? Were they ever supposed to give those to the teachers?
Always fake identities.
Yeah, they always had to lie, always give a different name, always give a different occupation. My older son, the one I wanted to throw away at 10, had a good friend from Haiti. who at various times told us he was from Haiti, from Montreal, from Brooklyn, made absolute sense. And it's a question that we should not have been asking. The flags over the community, what did they symbolize? Des, you know this. What did the flags over the community say when they would raise the flags? Anybody? Anthony?
Wasn't it to it was something for immigration to signal something, if not
Yeah.
mistaken?
That a boat with undocumented people was about to land and be ready to help the people. And we talked about the parents' mistrust of the children, because if they let out these secrets, then the outside world would know. The mistrust of the government, I think there was good reasons for that. The ghost teachers, don't trust the ghost teachers. They will always lie to you. They're full of lies. The value of the earthquake we talked about. Now, the last thing I want to do is just read this last sentence, paragraph. Lie to the Americans. Tell them you were born during the San Francisco earthquake. Again, that way there'll be no records. Tell them your birth certificate and your parents were burned up by the fire. Don't report crimes. And to me, that's really a reality and a tragedy, because that will expose people. Don't report crimes. Tell them we have no crimes and no poverty. Again, you don't want the government messing in. Give them a new name every time you're arrested. The ghosts don't recognize you, meaning they think all Chinese look alike. Pay the new immigrants 25 cents, new immigrants 25 cents an hour, and say we have none unemployment. Again, the exploitation. And of course, tell them you're against communists. She was talking about a period where the communists had just taken over China. Now, this is the best part, I thought. Ghosts have no memory anyway, and very poor eyesight, meaning the Chinese all look alike. And the Han, that's another way the Chinese refer to themselves. People won't be pinned down. So I thought your homework were really good. And Stephen, I thought, you said you did do a good job. You did a great job. And the rest of you did too. These are complicated issues and they hit home for a lot of people. And I don't, like I said, I want to make people uncomfortable, but I don't want people to feel that they have to be exposed or expose themselves to anything. So your assignment for due at 6 p.m. on Wednesday. You've had plenty of advance notice, and I hope most of you make the flag raising at noon. Peace out.
Oh, sorry, I have a question. So,
Yeah.
practice at 12 o'clock during it, is there an alternative assignment I could do?
I'll tape it and you can watch it then.
Thank you.
Okay.
Can I speak to you?
Yeah. Wait, are you telling the truth? You have practice in the snow?
Yeah, we have hitting.
You're going to be inside there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, we're hitting inside in Rankin.
Okay, that's better. What were you going to say, Giselle? Somebody was saying something?
Me.
Me, what do you want to say?
Hi, did you talk to Michelle?
Oh yeah, I'll send you some times tonight. Okay.
Sounds good. Is there a link for the flag raise?
2 pages. Oh, a link. Yeah, I put it up in the assignments.
Okay, got it.
Okay. Take care. Good to see you. Bye-bye.